It's a long way, 125 miles, when you're moving bite by bite. When it was finished, they turned to the next job and began again, bite by bite. This is a project of mammoth proportions, one that calls for more than 700 miles of new levees throughout the central and southern Florida area. Altogether, the entire project tackled represents one of the largest earth-moving jobs since the digging of the Panama Canal. So the next time you see a giant drag line or pipeline dredge chewing the rock from a project canal, think of the progress that's already been made and the work that lies ahead. Lines on a map are a simple thing. It's out there that the real work's done. Well done. But that's just part of it. Canals and levees are fine for the overflow, but we've got to control the water, make it do our bidding. This takes pumping stations, spillways and dams, all the way from the upper reaches of the Kissimmee River Basin down to the southern tip of the mainland of Florida. That's a large order. A pumping station, for instance, is no sense to build. It's got a big job to do. In effect, it speeds the flow of water just as an electric fan moves the air faster. You've got to get down to bedrock to pour the foundation. There must be nothing flimsy about this kind of installation. Thousands of cubic yards of concrete are shaped by huge forms, and beneath the thick-skinned face of the structure, reinforcing steel gives it a strength that will withstand the winds and waters of the hurricanes and the vicious storms to come. Each station is independent of local power. Its own generating plant produces the electricity it needs. In fact, each is actually an island unto itself, a place where the folks who run it ride out the severest blows of nature, keeping the pumps going and the waters moving to thwart the floods that used to devastate the lands around them. There are many major pumping stations throughout the central and southern Florida flood control project. Right now, this one's the largest, a giant that can remove over 2 million gallons of water a minute. That's right, 2 million gallons a minute. When you figure about 10 or 20 gallons to fill up your bathtub, you can imagine how much water this is. But you've got to have that kind of action to get heavy rainfalls off this kind of land. Gravity just won't do it. But you don't do a job like this with ordinary equipment. Take these conduits, for instance, too large to bring in by rail or by road. Made in Jacksonville, they were brought down the Atlantic Intracoastal Waterway, the St. Lucie Canal, across Lake Okeechobee, down the North New River Canal, and through the Everglades agricultural area. Bridges had to be lifted to permit passage of this clumsy cargo. Well, these canals weren't really built to handle this kind of traffic. 400 miles they came to this station, and now they're helping remove water from the surrounding soils, keeping it in a conservation area for storage. Water waiting to be used when needed. Not much to do when you work out here, that is, in the city sense of doing things. But many folks spend many dollars looking for natural beauty of this sort, for the unspoiled wonders of nature, where the sun is clean and the air is fresh. That flapping you hear is the beating wings of wildlife. And the fishing, superb. Knock off work and go catch your dinner. It's a simple life and a sporting one, especially when you land one like this. But most of the time it's hard work, plain hard driving work, where schedules must always be met, where the steel and the concrete and the piping and the wiring must all come together within a limit of time and a budget of money. Other structures for water controls are also going up. Systems to regulate the discharge of water, prevent over-drainage, and keep salt water from fresh groundwaters used by the coastal cities. More than 15,000 square miles of central and southern Florida flood control district are being studied by the mechanical restraints of man. The Central and Southern Florida Project, big as it is only the basic system for water control. Outside of it, individuals and sub-districts are providing the secondary works. Things like mole drains, private pumping stations, farm dikes and ditches. The big project makes it possible for folks to complete their water control needs. Water is available in project canals, but they've got to take it out and distribute it. Works the other way, too. If folks get too much water on their land during the rainy season, their private pumps can send it back to the canals. The great conservation areas to the southeast make use of land that isn't suited to agriculture. They keep the areas to the southeast make use of land that isn't suited to agriculture. They keep the water. It drains here from the lakes and rivers and the canals. Water that once ran wild. Water that ruined the rich terrain. Water that took lives and land, put disaster in the headlines and death upon the soil. Now, it just waits there, calm, peaceful, ready to do the bidding of man and his machines. Oh, there are still heavy rains. Where the project's been completed, the dams will control them, and the spillways release them, and the canals take them on, sending them to the appointed areas, and they lie there, waiting. So they wait, the waters, there in the great natural reservoir of Lake Okeechobee. Now they wait for the warnings of drought, and when it comes, they go off to spread life among the dried-up soils. Life brought on to man. And no longer do the waters inundate these lands. No longer do they rot the crops. No longer do they saturate and destroy the riches in the deep of the land. And downstate, water, now in the conservation areas, irrigates the coastal lands, stops the shrinking of the soil, helps preserve water supplies to cities, draws the wildlife to the protection of its still and quiet surface. And it's a beautiful bonus. Wildlife, displaced by Florida's burgeoning population, has found a home here. Game that now finds sanctuary in a wildlife paradise, controlled by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Florida State Game and Freshwater Fish Commission for conservation purposes. Much has been done. Central and Southern Florida is no longer nature's fool, the stooge for the impractical jokes of the elements. But the work isn't finished. In fact, it's just really begun. To the north, for instance, the great valley of the Upper St. Johns is still somewhat defenseless, and plans for water controls, levees, and conservation areas are now in the engineering stage. The Army engineers and the Central